Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we have Mark Kane with us, and he will be presenting on Dimensions 101. And I just want to let you know that all of our webinars are recorded, so this will be available later this week for you to view again or share it with any of your colleagues and friends. And we ask that if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we will get them called out toward the end of the webinar. I'll turn it over to Mark, and he will begin our presentation.
Good morning, everybody. As Angie said, my name is Mark Kane, and I'm a senior application consultant with Innovia. Just a little bit about my background. I like to joke that I'm a recovering CPA. So probably a lot of folks out there, we've probably walked in the same shoes at one point or another during our career. I've been in the ERP space about 20 years, Oracle, PeopleSoft, Exact Software, and I've been in the Microsoft space about 10 years now, and I've been working with NAV about 9. And I have to say, throughout my career, this is the one application I love the best. I think it's very powerful. I can do a lot of things with that. So I hope you share my opinion on that. So what I wanted to do today was, when Angie had asked me about something to do for one of the webinars, I thought about something I think is one of the more powerful tools that are in NAV, and it's in Dimensions. And I'm going to take this from the premise, and please ask questions as you care to, I'm going to take it from the beginning as though, this is kind of a new concept to everybody, and then I'm going to go through some of the relationships. And then what I wanted to emphasize in some of these things is that dimensions are not just used for financial reporting. They can be used for other things because the general ledger is very powerful. So let me just begin by my introduction. And my first question, are you currently using dimensions? And did you know they're not just for financial reporting? And just make sure this displays. And this is a little bit of a long line here. Even though dimensions are primarily used in reporting financial information, did you know that they can be used to report on critical data for customers, vendors, items, resources, and jobs? Dimensions in Dynamics NAV can be attached with master records to report such information as customer or vendor type, sales region, commodity code, item type or category, resource groups, and job type categorizations. Well, this requires some simple analysis on where to apply dimension controls, and dimensions can also be reported on an individual or rolled up basis. And the best part is that reporting on dimensions can be created with standard NAV reporting tools. So currently, if you're using account schedules, you're using analysis by dimension, you do filtering in the general ledger, the capabilities are there to get the information with the normal tools. Okay, so just from the top, what are dimensions? Dimensions in NAV are simply reporting segments. They are used primarily for financial reporting, but can be used to report on operational results based on requirements needed by individual departments. Okay, and then the categorization of dimension and dimension values. Very simply, the relationship between dimensions and dimension values are that of dimensions are basically a parent or family, and the dimension values are children or segments under that parent or family. And what I wanted to do is just give a little visual here of what might be used in your company. I mean, most of the customers that I have that use at least one dimension will have something for department or cost center. So if you have something that's here, such as departments, the dimension values underneath them can be as follows: admin, finance, manufacturing, sales, marketing, and IT. Of course, you can use your imagination as some of the other things that you might want to use here. Okay. And this will just give you, like I said, if you're familiar with this, this will just give you a little visual on this thing. The page in the background is just where the dimensions are, and the page in the middle is basically just the drill down on the dimension values, which is right here. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Let us go on. Okay, so now I have something here, what I call categorization of dimensions. And this is not something that you're going to see in any training material or any guides or anything else. This is kind of Mark speak. It's not NAV speak. I actually categorize these as two different types of fixed versus variable dimensions. And let me explain what I mean by that. So here, when I have a fixed dimension, that's a situation when a dimension value can be attached to a master file, such as an item, a vendor, or a customer, which results in that exact same value being passed every time this master file is used. So it's a one-to-one relationship. So if you have a customer that always ships to a specific sales region, you can attach that dimension value to the customer's card, and every time you transact using that customer, that dimension value will pass. Okay? Then I have what we call variable dimensions, and this is nothing out of the ordinary. This is basically when a dimension value is required, but the exact value would not be selected until time of transaction. So this is a one-to-many relationship. So for example, if you're putting in a purchase invoice or purchase order, and you have to have it, want a department required, but you don't decide what department that is until the time of data entry, you make that a variable dimension where I'm requiring a value, but I won't keystroke that until I get to the data entry screen. So that's the kind of definition. That's the kind of way I categorize these. And just a visual, this is a picture of a customer's card. And here's what I have here is I have a department attached to the card. And also I have a dimension value, so it's a one-to-one relationship. And the value posting will always be code mandatory. So if that's in there, what will happen is every time you transact with this, that value sales will go through right to your whatever your sales order or any other document you use with that. Let me just give you an idea of a variable. Now, variable is a little bit different. Usually what will happen here, and we'll go back to the example of the department that we said before, usually what will happen is the accounting folks will decide, listen, if I have these SG&A accounts like salaries or payroll taxes or something of that nature like I have here, I'm going to put the control in that I'm going to require a dimension value if I use these general ledger accounts. So if you see in the example that I'm showing here, the only thing that's a little bit different is I have it highlighted for the GL code 62200, which is salaries. And I have a dimension code of department is required, and also the value posting is code mandatory. But as you can see, I've left the dimension value code blank. What that means is when you go to do either journal entries or other transactions, it will not allow you to post this GL account without a dimension. So the good news with that is you can't kind of do an oops one day and forget to do that as long as these controls are set here at this level. I hope that is clear. Okay. Okay, so this is just a little more verbiage about what I was saying here. So attaching and assigning dimension controls, general ledger level, setting GL account level controls will prevent missing dimension values at the time of data entry. And master files, which I did show you with the customer card, setting recurring dimensions at the master file level will eliminate data entry of recurring values when same data is always used. And let's just back up a little bit and show you that again. Okay. So this is an example of a control a master file one-to-one relationship. And again, this is at the general ledger level where you would set it based on a requirement, but it would still need to be determined based on the data entry time. Okay, so we just went through that. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I know that not a lot of people either use this or are aware of this, is that you can actually roll dimensions up much like you do with your chart of accounts. So dimension values can be rolled up and summarized in the same manner as the general ledger chart of accounts. And by using beginning and ending total dimensions values, all dimension values between this range can be summarized for reporting purposes. Actually, it works the same way as the general ledger roll-up, is that you can get all the detail in the ending total dimension value. Like I said, I don't know if anybody uses that, but I have had quite a few customers where they've had multiple cost centers. And what they end up doing, and I just want to show you a little bit of a visual here. This has to do with area, and as you can see, we have beginning and end totals in here, and you can have multiple subsets of how you want to roll these things up. I have one customer where they probably have, or a manufacturing company, they have probably, I would say, 100 different cost centers, but they like to summarize them by operation. So what ends up happening is we have beginning and end totals for that. The only thing that gets a little tricky here that I just want to make you aware of, usually a lot of people use alpha when they set up the dimension values. Usually it works a little bit better if you have these things numerically in order. It just works a little bit better. So just something like I said, I don't know if you're using these, but just another little tool that some people don't know about that other people find very effective. Okay. 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 So what I wanted to do now is I want to show you an example of a posted sales invoice that I recently put together. And what I've done is I've attached dimensions at both the item and the customer level. And once you see the invoice, and I'll show you the whole thing, you'll see how all the dimensions automatically pass, but they were not keystroked in at the time of data entry. Okay? So I created the sales order, shipped and invoiced it, and by selecting only the customer and item to be shipped, you will see the dimension values that were passed from these master files. Okay. Okay. All right. So in the background is a picture of a posted sales invoice. And if you can see partially on the lines, what I did was I selected the customer, which is the Canon Group. And I also selected an item called the touring bicycle. As you probably well know, in Kronos, we like to sell furniture and bicycles. So I used one of those examples. Now, by drilling down on the lines, you can see the dimension set entries here. So one is passed for area, department sales, project Mercedes, purchaser Richard Lum, and salesperson Peter Sadow. But again, these were all values that were attached to master files, so there was no keystroking involved with this. This is a very nice and convenient way to do things if you can establish a one-to-one relationship with your master files. And you're also not limited to the amount of what I'll call fixed dimensions that you can attach to a master file. And you're also not limited to how many dimensions and dimension values you want to use. I didn't mention that earlier, but I just wanted to put that in now. Okay, any questions?
Not at this time, Mark.
Okay, like I said, it's a little hard since I'm not interacting with the audience if they have questions or not. Thank you. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to go into were the reporting options. And just a little bit about this, utilizing dimensions and dimension values enables the user to perform financial operation reporting using standard NAV reporting tools. And one of my favorite reports, which I'm going to show you an example of here, is an analysis by dimension and you can preview multiple displays utilizing dimension filters. You have complete drill down into source documents and the ability to create pivot tables from the analysis view. Now, I'm not much of a pivot table person. I know how to spell it, but I've seen some people really enjoy being able to use a pivot table when they're familiar with it. Okay. And Jet Express, this is the free version of the Jet reporting tool that comes with NAV. This one specifically is only for the general ledger tables, but again, if you're utilizing dimensions in NAV in the general ledger, this is another version, so that you don't have to go out and invest in any extensive reporting tools. You can use these two tools to get the information that you need. Okay. So analysis by dimension. And the first thing I wanted to show is what we call an analysis view. And basically what happens here is you're going to go in and create one of these, and on balance, these things probably take a couple minutes to do, and you can make as many of these as you want. But basically what you're going to do here is you're going to go and you're going to create a code, and you can pretty much name it anything you want. And what happens here is the basic functionality is you're going to have lines and you're going to have columns. And normally what happens is when you set it up the first time, it'll default to using the GL chart of accounts as the lines. And also it usually defaults to the period that you're reporting on. for the columns. But and since this is interactive, I won't be able to do it here. But if you care to, and you like the orientation better, by clicking on this button, Reverse Lines and Columns, you can change the orientation to have the columns show up as GL accounts and have the rows show up here as what the periods are. Entirely up to you. The other thing we're going to do is obviously you're going to enter the date that you want to report on. So in this case, I had January of 2018 through April of 2018. The account filter, what you will do here is you will go in and select the GL chart of accounts that you want to do. And I have a range here of 50,000 through 62,950, which in the database I'm using are basically the SG&A departments that would require department codes. So now the other thing you can do here is if you want to, you can have a budget filter. I didn't add one on this one, but now you have the option, you have up to 4 filters that you can put in here that are dimension filters. In this particular case, the only one I put in here was the department filter, but if I wanted to, I could have selected 3 other ones and also did some analysis based on that. And some of the options here, I have under the show, I have here is actual amounts. You do have the ability to show budgets also. Unfortunately, not in the same view at the same time. The amount field, I want the amount. You have the option here. You can use debits and credits, but that was kind of an old school selection that I don't really understand why was even involved with a lot of things. And if you want to, you have the option here of including or excluding year-end closing entries. Just depends how you want to do that here. Okay. So what I also down here, the matrix options I want to view by, in this particular case, accounting period, but I can do by any other type of measurement. I can do it by day. I can do it by week. I actually was doing some testing data for one customer that I was actually running this daily because we were doing an interface between a legacy order entry system and NAV. We wanted to make sure we had all the values tied out. And then also what you do, you have the view as either net change or balance at date. I think that would just depend on what type of data you're looking at, whether you're looking at income statement or you're looking at balance sheet data. Okay. So now that I have that set up and saved, what I'm going to do is go over to the ribbon and I'm going to go here and click on Show the Matrix. And what I'm going to get here, as you can see, based on the format that I laid out, is that my general ledger counts are my rows and my periods are my columns. So what I have here is I have a total amount. I also have a monthly amount for each of the 4 months that I suggested. The nice thing about this is, since this is not really a report, it's a table that gets updated, I can click on any of these values and I can drill right back to the navigation page like you have in your general ledger detail. I can actually get right back to the source document. So I could get back to if it's a posted sales invoice, if it's a posted purchase invoice, if it's a journal entry, if it's a reversing journal entry. I can get to that level of detail just by going through this report. Okay, so this is kind of the first pass where I show it's the standard one where it's the rows and the columns, the GL accounts, and the dates. But what I want to do now is I want to change the orientation a little bit and show you what else we can select on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this report, and I'm not going to change the GL accounts. I'm going to leave those as the lines. But what I am going to do here is I'm going to change the column orientation, and I'm going to select department. So now what's going to happen when I run this again, I'm still going to get the GL accounts as the lines, but now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to get the dimension values as the department names as the columns. And just what I did here, I went down and enabled show column name, so it just won't come up with a figure. And I'm going to run the same date with the same period of time, and I'm going to click on my show matrix. And you can see now that the column or headings are now the dimension values that we have selected for those departments. Okay. Same capabilities, same drill down features, just a little different orientation. Okay. So that's the analysis view. The other piece now, which I like to show, is right from this, if you care to. A lot of people like to use Excel. For the most part, people are fairly familiar with Excel. But right from this view here, I can click in here where it says Export to Excel. And it'll develop a pivot table to me automatically. And like I said, I'm not very fluent in pivot tables, but I understand a lot of people like them. You can do a lot of slicing and dicing by the fields here, and you can change the orientation. The nice part of this too is that all the transaction detail is populated on one of these other tabs in here. So if you actually want to drill down on that, you can do the same thing here. Okay. Like I said, I don't know if you folks are utilizing this, but I find this a very, very powerful tool. Okay. All right. And the benefit of using dimensions, you have the ability to report on both financial and operational data through NAVGL, and NAVGL is very, very powerful for those who are doing it. Easy to set up at any point in time, and eliminates repetitive entries. Enable control on MasterCards and GL level to eliminate missing reporting. So in combination with the dimension values and the general ledger, you can really tighten up your financial reporting. And like I said before, not have the occasion of having a whoops where some value is missing on data entry. I've kind of gone through a lot of data here, and I wanted to know, like I said, if there are any questions on any of this or anything related to this.
Yes, Mark, we do have a few questions that have come through. For those of you that are still interested in asking your questions, go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we'll get them called out. So the first question that came through, I may have missed this part, but were you correct on this? Can you roll up dimension data in the same method as chart of accounts data?
Yes, you can. All you have to do is use beginning and ending dimension values, and the ones in between in dimensions, they're called standard, not posting like in the GL accounts. Yes, you can absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you. And like you said in the beginning, dimensions can be used to report on operational data, not just financial data. Is that correct?
That is correct. A lot of people use dimensions to, like I said, when they usually for one-to-one relationships, they can report on salespeople, they can report on employees, they can report on specific departments in manufacturing, they can report on, like I said, sales region, country regions, things of that nature. I consider that more operational than financial reporting, but yes, you can. And that's why I try to stress that, is because typically, and I'm always the same way, okay, I have a natural account and I have a segment, and they're usually pre-populated with NAV and dimensions. They're kind of separate, but you can link them together very easily.
Okay. And then what is the difference between fixed versus variable dimensions?
Again, that's my terminology. You won't find that in any of the training manuals. What I consider a fixed dimension is if I have a value that, in the regards, let's say the one customer I had before, I have a specific sales region that customer sells to. If I know what that value is, I can attach that to the card with a value in there, such as Northeast, Southeast, Europe, things of that nature. And once that is established and the value is put there, every time I use that customer, that value is going to pass automatically. Now, the variable side would be a little bit more, let's say, for example, you're booking your payroll. On the general ledger, I'm going to put the control in that says, okay, for these GL accounts, I want to have a department dimension, but I don't know what that is until the point of data entry. So what happens is if you require that value, if you remember the example I did, I put department, put code mandatory, but I left the dimension value blank. What that will do is if you happen to miss that when you're putting the journal entry together or whatever you're utilizing, and you try to post it, it'll stop you dead in your tracks.
All right, thank you, Mark. I believe that's all the questions that we have.
Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to, on the next slide, that's my contact information. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Angie or myself on this. Be more than happy to help. And I hope you enjoyed the seminar today.
All right. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. And just a reminder, it has been recorded, so it will be available later this week on our website for you to review again or share with any of your colleagues and friends at innovia.com. And I also want to let you know about our events that are coming up. So if you go to our website and visit the events page, you will see the different events that we have coming up. We have one actually that we're scheduling for Zetadox Equisys next week. So if you're interested in that, they will be presenting on Zetadox for NAV delivery additions. So if you would like to attend their webinar, you may do so. We're just advertising it for them. So that is on our website on May 22nd. And then we have a couple coming up in June. June 7th, we're doing a webinar on what NAV users need to know about shop floor data collection from InsightWorks. And then NAV 2018 Tips and Tricks is going to be the webinar on June 19th. So if you're interested in any of those webinars or any of our future webinars, please register on our site, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our future webinars. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you again for attending.
Thank you.